All right. Thank you, Susie. Hi.
Hello, hello. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
You as well. Thank you for being here with me today. Can we just kind of start out, Susie, before I sort of fill everybody in on where I'm at today? Just kind of tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to say?
Yes.
I thought you said I want to
Do.
fill people in.
No, I like to hear in your words, in your own words, not mine.
Oh, okay. Well, let's begin again. Okay, one, two, three. Okay. Hi, Sarah. How are you today?
Well, I'm
Ah, so you wanted to hear a little bit about who I am so people can know. So my name is Susie Castellanos Hansley, Dr. Susie. I have a PhD. And really, I am a master certified coach, but really what I do is I am a speaker, workshop facilitator, and coach. And my goal is really to help people stress less so they can achieve their goals. And I love working with teams and groups, and I love coaching people. And one of my fortes is as somebody who has a lot of trauma from her past, who has really worked with it through lots of modalities. I understand grief and emotions really well. And I understand really the importance of working with them
Mhm.
because they're there and they're there to help us. They're there to keep us safe, to keep us connected in different ways. And it's such a privilege for me to be here with you, Sarah, and offer what I can.
Thank you. And you already answered, like, what was it about, my experience that made you want to, step in and help and walk beside me on this. And you answered that. And I just kind of want to fill people in on where I'm at. It's been about 12 weeks, a little over 12 weeks since Rob's death. And I've been doing kind of the more somatic type sessions, getting coached for about a month now. Um, and I have a question for you, Susie, about trauma. Because I don't think I really know or understand much about trauma. Because when I think about the experience that I had, and even just like narrowing in and zeroing in on the day that he died, if someone else were to tell me that story, I would immediately be like, oh my gosh, yes, that sounds very traumatic.
Hmm.
But when I think about my experience, I notice like there's a big disconnect. I don't know, like everybody is like, of course, Sarah, of course you're traumatized. Of course you went through a traumatic experience. But I feel so disconnected from, even as I think about that day and just
Hmm.
how like completely I feel like I had an out of body experience and I continue to do so. I don't know if it's shock or or what, but it's like I'm disassociated
Hmm.
from it. And it's kind of fascinating. And again, I recognize like that doesn't have to be a problem, but I notice myself thinking about that day a lot, like every day, or while I'm trying to sleep, or when I wake up in the middle of the night. Like I'll kind of like go through that day, but it's like a never ending, just kind of,
Does it feel like it just keep replaying and there's no resolution?
yes, yeah. But there's also like, again, I continue to feel that like very disconnected feeling. Like I even think about like when the doctor pulled me out of the room, the surgeon, and he's telling me what's happening. And I'm just like, not there, or when they sat me down in the room after he had died to tell me that he had died, it was just like I felt just blank.
Hmm.
And so even now, even when I think about it now, it's like I just feel so disconnected from it. So yeah, it just keeps
Yeah,
replaying, but
yeah.
it never, nothing, I'm not feeling like any
It
shift.
never resolves. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So of
And
course,
that's okay. And that's actually pretty normal.
is it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's pretty normal. Yeah, it is because I mean, I'll just define trauma for you the way I think is a good definition that really helps us understand how and why we feel what we feel or don't feel what we feel.
Okay.
So trauma is some, I would like to say that in a way, trauma is not necessarily what happens to us. It's how our nervous system and our physiology takes it in.
Okay.
And when there is something that feels incredibly dangerous, either to you or to somebody you love, um, that's going to trigger fight, flight, freeze
Mhm.
response, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and you've probably, and sometimes it is going to be like an action, for example, um, that somebody does for toward you. But in particular, when the thing that happens when we have no power to change it, that is what creates trauma.
Okay.
Because then what happens is that's when we can go into a freeze. So as an example, if somebody was torturing you, or if there was rape, or in this case, the death of your husband, and there's nothing you can do,
Yeah.
it's that feeling of extreme powerlessness that causes us, like, we've now secreted all this cortisol and adrenaline to try to fight and flee, fight and flee, fight and flee. And you get to that point where neither of those things is going to save you or the person you care about. You're going to the body shuts down physiologically and goes into freeze. And so that's all that's happening. It's actually a really powerful way to protect us, that when like when if it's a physical potential, like if, say, if you're in a car accident or anything, the body wants to shut down to preserve the internal organs, right? If you are being raped, you want to disassociate, or if you're feeling a lot of physical pain, your body wants to disassociate from that pain to protect you. And that's also happens to us when it's not us who are experiencing the pain, but when we see somebody we love
Mhm.
and we can't control the situation, that is going to churn, because it's not even the moment he passed or the moment you saw him or the moment the doc, it was everything up to that point.
Mhm.
Your cortisol and adrenaline, and then, the cortisol creates glucose, so you have energy for the muscles. Like, you were acting, acting, acting. What are we going to do? Okay, da da da. You were in fight mode, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, guess what? There's nothing else you can do.
Yeah.
And that puts us into freeze.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So I feel like I'm still there 3 months later.
It makes sense that you do.
Okay. So there's a part of me then that is like, okay, I don't want to stay, I guess I would say, stuck there. But then there's a part of me that's like, no, maybe this is protecting me. And I do want to stay because I'm afraid of what would it look like to actually feel and face and process the thing that caused the freeze. Is that even necessary? Like, that's where I'm kind of like, what's the next step? Yeah.
So what'll happen is when you start to feel safe enough to feel the feelings will come out. And here's what I mean by that.
Okay.
It's only been 12 weeks.
Yeah.
I have to imagine there's been a ton of things you have to take care of that are causing you a lot of stress, that are putting you into survival mode. I got to figure out insurance. I got to figure out what's happening with the house. What about the finances? What about this? What about, is that the case for you? Like, are there
Well,
more?
that's not the case for me. That's his son from a previous relationship. Everything went to his son. We had separate houses, so everything went to his son. So the son's mother
Mhm.
has had to do all of that. I actually haven't had to do anything except just now just go through life now, that
Mhm.
whereas everything, we were very interconnected, and all of that, everything I did, I thought of him, I considered him, he was involved, we saw, just the daily, it's more like the daily presence of your person that's in your life
Sure.
every day. So I didn't have
Okay.
to immediately jump into like that mode. I certainly had my own responsibilities, my own children, my job, all of that to handle while that was going on. But it's more just the absence,
Right.
if that makes
But there
sense.
were things that you had to handle now alone.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you feel supported during that time, or did you feel like I have to figure this out? Like what was going through your mind and
Sure,
as
like
over the
the
past
day you mean like the day that he died?
since then?
Or even since then? I think
Yeah.
I do. I think I do feel supported. I feel, supported by
Mhm.
you and the coaching community that I reached out to. I feel supported by my close circle. Um, and then, some new people that came into my life
Mhm.
from knowing Rob. I do feel supported. I do feel like I have people to talk to, reach out, they reach out to me. Um, so no, the only way that I don't feel supported is from his absence.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I know when we chatted, you said that part of the reason you want to work through this is that you're finding yourself having these moments where, in a way, it's almost like a PTSD experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I have had a few moments where like I don't even it's nothing I'd ever experienced before. So it's kind of hard to understand what exactly was happening. But I've had a few moments where, I would just be in a normal situation and just overcome with an out of control feeling. And I wouldn't even call it an emotion. I guess it is, but it was just like a feeling that just waved over me to the point where I didn't feel I had any control. Like I had to sit, I was nauseous, I couldn't speak. um just for no apparent, like out of nowhere, there wasn't like a particular trigger. I was just like
Right.
hall monitor at my kids school one day, and just sitting in the hall,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it just like washed over me and it was scary. Yeah.
And is that really the thing, maybe more that we could work on? It's how to be okay when that happens.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's that, or the again, like the like the why do I want to keep thinking about that day? And like keep reliving it in my mind over and over and over again, to the point where I'm not in a conversation. I'm not hearing anything somebody is saying when they're talking to me.
Hmm.
I'm not sleeping, which isn't helping anything, to not be sleeping. And I just wonder what what is it? Like, why is that happening? And what can I do to start to shift that?
Okay.
So I'm
Let
not
me tell you.
terribly afraid of the like kind of that overwhelming feeling happening again. It happened twice, and by the second time I was at least able to be like, okay, this is happening again.
Hmm.
I understand what's happening. I am okay. It's going to pass. So I was able to just kind of sit there in the school hallway. Luckily, everybody was in their classrooms and nobody, and I was able to just sit there, breathe, so I'm not afraid necessarily of that happening again, but
Hmm.
I am afraid of two things. I'm afraid of continuing to just roll this day through my
The
mind.
rumination.
I'm
Uh-huh.
afraid of the rumination, but I'm also, I think, possibly even more afraid to face what maybe I would describe as a healthy, and maybe that's not the right way to say it, reaction to your loved one dying. Like, not this like disconnected, disassociated, numb thing that I'm doing now.
Yeah. So I hear, in a way, a little bit of self-judgment of what's happening, of the reality of how this is showing up for you.
Mhm.
Would that be the case?
Probably. And as I look back even on my life, I'm starting to go like, dang, I'm pretty disassociated in general. Like I am not in touch with my emotions, and like there are huge chunks of my childhood I don't even remember. I don't remember how I felt. I don't remember, you know, anything about emotions from my childhood or even my like young adult years. Maybe starting in my mid to late 20s, I can now think of a couple where like, oh yeah, that was an emotion. I felt emotional during that time. But before that, nothing. I got nothing.
Was it, what did you learn about emotions just from your earliest experience growing up with your caretakers? Or what it,
Nobody, I can't even answer that question because nobody talked to me about them. Nobody, it was just me and my mom pretty much. And she was, I think, in her own world. And
yeah,
I didn't have like, I feel like I didn't have examples of it. And and again, I don't remember ever experiencing any of it or having somebody talk to me or comfort me or
yeah,
anything. I don't remember any of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, based on my own experience and everything I know, what I think might be happening is that there is some kind of complex early childhood trauma that you might have.
Mhm.
And this is all, and I'm going to explain what that means because I don't want you to feel like, oh my God, what does this
Yeah.
mean? It's actually super common.
Yeah.
When, so when we are, so the first thing is when, psychologically, physiologically, when we come out of the womb, we don't know how to fight or flee. All we know is how to freeze. We don't
Mm.
know how to self-regulate.
Yeah.
This is something that we don't really learn till we're 6 or 7, and that's if we have attuned caretakers who know how to regulate themselves and attune to us as babies.
Okay.
So if you have a disconnected parent who doesn't know how to deal with her or his emotions,
Mhm.
and then you have a crying baby,
Mm.
what happens is that baby, it kind of depends on how the parent is responding. But in an ideal world, a baby cries and the caretaker is attuned enough to simply create, sort of like, that's the whole mirror neurons, all of that. It the caretaker is calm enough and compassionate enough and witnessing enough for the baby to be soothed by just their own energy and to feel safe.
Yeah.
But they're not made to feel bad about their emotions. It's just like, the problem is that most caretakers don't know how to do that because, a lot of times they didn't learn. They're
Yeah.
really stressed out too.
Yep.
I mean, so even when we have what we think of as good parents, we don't realize that they might be really disconnected from themselves, and a disconnected caretaker cannot make you feel connected.
Yeah.
And so then you unconsciously, you're going to feel disconnected because that is what you learned.
Yeah.
That the baby who cries but is ignored or is just kind of like whatever is going to learn, it's going to see that the parent is uncomfortable because this is the key thing that when we are babies, we cannot fight or flee.
Yeah.
And the most important imperative, like unconsciously driving us, is survival, right? As organisms. And any baby and young child who senses that their emotions are a problem for the caretaker, whether it means the caretaker turns away, maybe the caretaker frowns, maybe the caretaker is like, oh, stop crying, any of those things, even before language, the baby will internalize and recognize I'm wrong for having emotions.
Okay.
I need to hide these if I want to exist in this community, in this society, in this caretaking space. We will always think our emotions are the problem because that is the only thing we have to protect us is we need to fit into our caretaker space.
Okay.
So that is fundamental to all of us. So
Yeah.
what I want you to get is like, given our society,
Yeah.
And the fact that we have an ideology, if you go back all the way, at very least to like, you know, I mean, before Descartes, like going back to, Roman times or even before, I mean, think of the Stoics. It's like emotions are a problem.
Yeah.
If you have an emotion, that means you're being weak. And that is part of the programming we have as human beings. And and it is, I mean, honestly, emotions are dangerous when you don't have a stable society and a stable environment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That makes sense.
So, historically, it's only once you get like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then you could have families that are really caring and they're not worried about survival. But most of us, like, it's part, in a way, it's like that's how we're designed to be nurtured and, get co-regulated. And that's how we develop our ability to handle our emotions, to recognize they're not a problem and that we work through them as mammals with our pack. That nobody, when in a pack, when the deer in my backyard hear me come out and freak out, and then I come back in, the deer isn't going to go to the other deer and get yelled at and be like, God, you're so stupid. It was just her taking out the trash. Why are you so emotional? Or there's not going to be another deer going, oh my God, are you okay? Was that scary? Because then the other deer is going to be like, holy shit. Like what the deer want and what they do and what all mammals need is simply somebody going like, yeah, it makes sense you were scared. Then this one is like, oh, okay, I feel better. All right, let's go eat her hydrangeas. We're good now, right? But the reason I want to explain this for you and for your audience is that we don't recognize that that lack of attunement is a trauma. And what makes it a trauma isn't like, oh, the parents are evil or they raped me or they did something. It's that the nervous system got triggered and there was no safety created.
Okay.
So the cortisol and adrenaline stays in the body. It doesn't ever feel better. And now we have something to pattern match. Oh, if I'm too emotional.
Yeah.
And then what happens is over time, like, cortisol and adrenaline does not feel comfortable in the body on purpose. It's supposed to get our attention so that if the tiger's coming and it starts secreting, we know to wake up and not get eaten.
Yeah.
But for a lifetime of learning that we have to suppress our feelings, that's why we get disassociated. We don't pay attention to our bodies, but it's not a shameful thing. It just makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And I don't need to even go into the details of my childhood, but as you're talking, I'm just like, oh yeah. Now the
Yeah.
puzzle pieces are starting to click together in my mind. But so now
Yeah.
what? So knowing now and understanding in a non-judgmental way, like that totally makes sense
Mm-hmm.
that I would experience life in this way
Mm-hmm.
with that knowledge and with that awareness, then it's like, okay, now what?
Good question. So the good thing is, so I like to talk about it like there's the operating system and then there's the program on top of it. The operating system is designed for us to be triggered when there's a threat, get the cortisol and adrenaline in, prepare us for fight, flight, freeze, and then once the threat is over, we come back. And for mammals, the way we know the threat is over and the way we bring ourselves back is we do stay aware of our bodies, aware of our community, and release the cortisol and adrenaline. What's the number one way all animals release cortisol and adrenaline is by crying. I'm gonna
Mm,
tell you right now. So all the things that you ever observe animals in pain do, like howl, cry, for sure, your cats and your dogs, after they have a little thing, they're gonna shake it off and they're gonna do all this stuff.
yeah,
They're gonna lick, whatever. Like they have to get it out of them.
yeah,
So the cool thing is that's still there for us. I mean, that operating system is much more defined than the programming on top of the operating system says don't cry, don't be emotional. So what it is that we start retraining. We start noticing when the programming tells us to feel shame and not reflect it.
mm,
And we allow ourselves to be like, yeah, it makes sense why I'm shaming myself. And we work with it. the key thing that I would say in your case, or for anybody who's listening who might relate to kind of, because this isn't the thing to understand, right? Is that when we have complex PTSD from just like that kind of childhood experience of being taught to disconnect from your feelings, what happens is then you can tolerate that pretty well most of your life until something and until something happens and that doesn't allow you to handle that anymore.
Yeah.
And this is what happened. And then for other people, COVID was the thing. Like if something really bad happened. So I feel like for all of us, for all humans, what we learned as far as suppression will work pretty well until society throws something at us and it's like so much that it's like, oh, we gotta learn how we're supposed to handle threats.
Okay.
And so this is kind of a key point for you. This is like an opportunity point for you.
Yeah.
And I would say though, honestly, that I would recommend a skilled trauma therapist, and I have people I can recommend. Like
Okay.
the one that I had was amazing
Yeah. And
because,
I am in therapy.
oh, good. Okay.
So yes, and we're actually even this week supposed to do like some really interesting things around that, perhaps that some of that childhood trauma and the day that he died and stuff. But so yeah, I do have that support. Um so
But
in
yeah.
addition to that, yeah, like what would be, do you think, like your recommendation, because I think you're right, like, and I think that's why I wanted to do this series on the
Mhm.
channel and use this opportunity, is because I can sense like there's a lot going on here that I could learn from. And I mean, what better opportunity to lean into that, to lean into how to figure out how to connect with my emotions and feel my emotions and not be afraid of them.
But
Uh,
here's what I'm going to say.
yeah.
The focus on learning is still very intellectual.
Okay. Yeah.
So every time you focus on, I want to learn how to do this so I can
Yeah.
stop feeling this way. That's really the thing.
Sure. Sure.
And I hear that because that was me. It's like, well, if I learn how to do this, then everything will be okay. But
Yeah.
what it is that it really is. So you said you have therapists. That's great. There's many different kinds of therapists. Some therapists I think are better than others at this kind of stuff.
Okay.
But and I'm happy to talk more one-on-one outside of that to see
Yes.
if you
Fine.
know
Sounds like a good fit. Okay.
yeah, because I mean I've just seen a lot and I know some stuff is way faster and more effective than others because they're using modalities that work. I know a lot of people use EMDR. EMDR would probably be really great for those moments that you could notice when if you have a very clear memory of something.
Mhm.
However, it actually takes a long time to do EMD to work through a memory through EMDR.
Okay.
There are some other, I'm just going to go ahead and let you know for others who may be interested, is the school that I highly recommend, the therapeutic school that I highly recommend for trauma is going to be called Human Givens. So that's HUMANGIVENS. It's a school based in the UK. They are spreading more into the States,
Mhm.
but they have scientific data and studies that show how much faster and more effective it is than EMDR.
Okay.
In part because when you do, if you have a lot of old trauma that, it was before language, you don't have
Mhm.
specific memories, EMDR, it won't work that well
Okay.
because it really meant to be like, hey, this specific traumatic thing happened and we can deal with that memory. What I would say is that the human givens, which was what my therapist was, helped me a lot because we were working more with the affect. And
Mhm.
that's what the emotion, you're saying like, oh, I don't know if it's really an emotion. It's like, oh yeah, it's emotion. Emotions are like the sensations, right? That are created by all those like chemicals in our body
Yeah.
trying to protect us, right? And so, and then we give them names because that helps us name them.
Yeah.
But ultimately, remember a lot of this stuff happen, like most of the stuff happens before language.
Hmm.
And so we want to so as much as possible, when we can look at that 80% of us, that's actually the body, because when we look at the polyvagal theory and how emotions work,
Yeah.
it's like everything's connected, but 80% goes up and only 20% comes down. And so when we focus so much on the cognitive behavior, even dialectical behavioral therapy, it doesn't work as effectively as some other modalities that are more integrative.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's go to your question then. How do you work with it now outside of therapy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so there is another person that I would recommend, and hopefully you could just add links to some of the things that I mentioned, but one of them is Irene Lyon, Lyon.
I've heard of her. Yeah.
Yes. So she has a wonderful program and several programs that have been amazing because she really teaches you how to be with your body. And the whole idea of it is that, a lot of the time people are like, oh, we're going to hack your trauma or hack your nervous system. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. Right. And so one of the things is it's really begins in small ways, and stopping when it feels like too much. I
Mm.
think we talked about that whole aspect of titration, which is a term that Peter Levine uses. It comes from chemistry, that you don't want to put two things that cause an explosion together and just go, it's like titration is you add just a little bit more and just a little bit more and then it kind of dissolves itself. So I would think, so I'm curious, like, I think the thing for you would be to just start noticing when you're feeling disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling right now? What do you notice now?
I feel very disconnected today. And I've been
Yeah.
noticed it all day.
Okay.
Yeah, that's been on my mind and just sort of like walking around noticing it, but that's pretty much just kind of where I'm at. Just sort
What
of
happens if we don't call it
noticing.
disconnection?
Hmm.
What is the actual sensation that you're feeling in your body? Or if you just kind of check in and like
Yeah,
move your body around if you want, do whatever your body wants to do. Right now, I'm going to do this myself because
yeah, it's very heavy.
it's
Like,
okay. Do it.
feels like a wet blanket.
Oh
Is
my God. Let's act it out together.
like
Awesome. Yeah. And this is good. Yeah, feel the wet blanket.
so just when I do that, it's like the thing that came to my mind is like, God, I'm just trying so damn hard to hold it together. I'm just letting myself do something simple like that, just to hang my head.
Yeah. When your body feels disconnected, it's because it wants you to do that heaviness. Right? Let's do that together. Because your brain is saying, no, 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 we can't do this. We have to hold it together. And your body is saying, no, I want to be fucking heavy like a wet blanket. Let me just be that. So let's do that. If you feel comfortable trying it. Where does the body want to go when you allow it to be a wet blanket?
Just curl up in a ball.
Awesome. Okay, let's do that together. I'm going to do it with you, okay? Just gonna, and notice how you just want to like curl up. And what does the body wants to do? Does it want to stay there or does it want to move toward the ground? Where does it want to go?
Honestly, I feel better already.
Woohoo! Great.
I don't need to get all dramatic about it, like, oh my gosh, even just that one thing of letting my head drop. Oh my God.
But that's interesting. You're like, I don't need to get all dramatic. What does that mean? If you allowed yourself to put your body where it wanted you to go, you would feel you're being dramatic.
I guess maybe a little.
It makes sense, right? You've
Yeah.
been told you can't have emotions. That's being overly dramatic.
Mm,
But your body's like, I just want to do this. Can we just do this? Can
mm.
we do this? Can we shut the judgment off and be like, hey, I just want to get into a ball. Let me get into a ball. Let's see what that's like. You willing to try that and see what it does? Because
Mhm.
something will open up for you when you actually allow your body to do what it wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, if I do it, I have to like get out of my chair.
Oh, horrors.
I have to get out of my chair and I have to turn my computer. Oh,
Let's do it. Okay,
or
I'm gonna do it. We're doing this.
here's my bed. And
All right, I'm gonna do it with you.
I just want to,
All right. This is so good. This is because this is what your body wants. Okay. So describe it to me. Like you're just are you laying in bed and
yeah, can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Tell me like what your body is there any movement that your body wants to do, or is it just kind of staying like a wet blanket?
No, it's just feels so cozy and so comforting.
Awesome.
Like I can relax.
Oh my gosh. So your body wants you to relax. What does it want you to do now? Just stay where you're at, or is there anything else that it's calling you to do?
Sleep.
Uh, so close your eyes. Let's take a nap. I'll take a nap with you. I think, I honestly think that if this is what your body wants to do, this is what it's called to do, let's do it.
Well, I
Let's just,
know like intellectually it won't let me actually sleep, but just like being here and laying down, giving myself permission to curl up in a ball in the middle of the day.
mm-hmm.
It seems so simple and so silly that I wouldn't give myself permission to do that. Like, I'm already in bed, I'm ready to sit up. I'm
Okay,
already
let's
like,
sit up.
like in bed a solid like 12 hours a night because I don't sleep well. So I give myself all this time to make sure I get sleep. And so I'm unconsciously, subconsciously like, no, you can't lay down. You got stuff to do,
Yeah.
right? Like in the day, but just like granting myself permission. I don't feel like, okay, I'll feel so much better if I take a nap. I feel better just being like, you can do that. It's okay. And thank you for doing that with me. It's amazing.
Yeah. I wanna offer you something about that though.
Yeah.
Because I know, I mean, as former, as fellow LCS coaches,
Yeah.
some of the language you're using is giving myself permission.
Yeah.
And and I don't think it's that. I want to offer you a different way to think about it.
Tell me.
What's really happening is your body wants you to listen to it,
Yeah.
and you're being resistant.
Mhm.
So when you listen to it, it's not like I'm giving myself permission, it's that you're now listening to your body. I want to offer that change in language
Okay.
and ask you how is that different to say, "Hey, I'm actually listening to my body and doing what it needs."
Okay. I just got goosebumps. So I know we're on to something here. It feels different because if I'm giving myself permission, then I can feel this flavor of like, oh, that you're doing something wrong
Yes. Ding
versus
ding 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 ding.
versus I'm listening to my body and what my body needs right now.
Yes,
That
yes, because that's the thing that the whole hidden ideology that we all have because we live in a capitalist society is that You need to be a machine and just do it. Your brain needs to override your body all the time. You need to be able to control it. You just need to be doing shit all the time. And that's not how it works. That is what creates so much stress, anxiety, metabolic disorders in our society. We keep believing the capitalist lie that our value is our labor. I mean, this is what John Locke said. Literally, value comes from labor. And that causes us to be disembodied, to disconnect from what our bodies actually need. That bodies, not just ours, think of your cat back there, think of anything. We put in effort and then we have recovery. We put in effort and then we have recovery because that's what the body needs. I mean, have you ever done weightlifting or a race or trained for anything before? Are you supposed to just keep leveling up all the time or start really high up?
You have to go through recovery.
Yeah, and you build, right? But you cannot run like 7 days a week. I mean, unless you're a professional runner
Right. And that's your
and
job.
you have built yourself up to that, and that is the only thing you have to do in life, and so you're not expending energy on other things.
Right.
We train and then we recover. And it's the recovery that makes us strong, not the training. When you go weightlift, it breaks those tissues, but that's not what makes us strong. It's the day of recovery that helps them become stronger. And the thing is, our bodies always know what we need. It's just that our society has programmed us to believe that, well, I guess I'll give myself permission to take a day off. And it's like, no, your body's fucking telling you, take the goddamn day off. You're tired. And then celebrate that as like, yes, I've stopped listening to my programmed brain and I'm listening to my body because my body knows what I need. What's coming up for you when I say that?
Well, I feel emotional. Like I'm so happy to have had the experience and feel like I'm excited to I'm excited to like reframe that and to give my body a voice.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm gonna get verklempt. Because your body's been talking to you all this time.
I do. I love it. I want to know. I do. I genuinely do. I want to know what you want me to know.
Yes. And that's really the first step to recognize, like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that I haven't been listening to you. And I'm committed to learning to hear you and being partners. And I know that it's not my fault. It's just this conditioning I got. And I'm just so excited that I finally figured that out. And I'm committed to you being my best friend.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea where this was going to go today. So that's what I love about this. It was so unexpected and eye-opening and just heart-opening. I feel lighter. I feel more in touch with my body. And I'm going to go lay down.
I love it. I love that for you.
Yeah.
And what I invite you to do is that whenever you feel, so here's the thing, the programming doesn't go away.
Okay.
And we want to honor the programming that saved your life as a young child, that taught you how to protect yourself when you did not have, that you had to be like stoic, you had to be in control.
Yeah.
That was life-saving for that, that little baby, that young girl. And it's still a pattern. It's a pattern you're going to continue to have. It's a pattern I still have. The key is not to be upset when it comes up because it will come up. It's just the pattern. It's part of the programming. And this is one of the things that I want to offer that's a little bit different than LCS is that when when we notice the pattern come up, we want to just say, our thought is going to be, oh, look, there's my pattern again. It makes sense. And we release the emotion, and then we say, what do we want to do instead? Because right now, that's not the pattern that's serving me for this thing right now. Because there's going to be times that pattern's going to serve you. You want to know when? When your husband was sick and dying, that was the pattern we wanted. It's like, get on, right? Can you get that?
I'm
That fight mode.
yes. Yeah.
We want that in those moments we need it.
Okay.
And what's going to happen is that our bodies, our nervous systems, we have, our brain and our body, more our body. I really want to focus so much more on the body, because even though it's kind of, you have the reticular activation system and it triggers the amygdala. If the amygdala doesn't give those warnings to the body and the body doesn't go, nothing happens.
Okay.
It's the body, right? Body keeps the score.
Yeah.
Body's telling us what we need to pay attention to. You will get triggered again and again and again by things that are not death threats,
Yeah.
because that's just what we're programmed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than be like, oh, my brain's so dumb, it's just like brains do stupid shit. Oh, no, we want to honor it. We want to be like, yeah, that's the thing that saved me as a kid. That's the thing that had me almost save my husband if he could have been saved.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that helped me save my kids at various times. If I see a car coming and they're going to get hit.
Okay.
So we want to honor that. And it's really more about noticing it, recognizing it, and then being like, oh, wait, but this is not a death threat right now. If my body wants to rest, ain't nobody going to die if I rest. In fact, I'll probably die sooner if I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to offer that, because I know that that's kind of like when we know this, it's great, but you're going to keep forgetting because it's just the pattern. But every time you notice it and you celebrate yourself for noticing, for being like, oh, look at that. I'm thinking that I need to give myself permission.
Yeah.
That's not it. I'm listening to my body. Yay, me.
Okay.
And then that's why I have these pom-poms, because this is self-directed neuroplasticity. When we celebrate ourselves for noticing the smallest thing, the things that we want to be able to do in order to change, that creates dopamine and new neural pathways.
Yeah.
So anytime you notice yourself shaming yourself, beating yourself up, thinking I shouldn't do this, instead of beating yourself up more for doing it, celebrate yourself for noticing.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, I can do that.
Do you want to go take a nap now, or what do you want to do?
I do. I do.
Awesome.
No, I definitely, even though like I don't feel that like heaviness that I was describing, I am so tired. Like, yeah,
See, that's beautiful. Your body's talking to you and you're listening.
for that. I'm going to honor it.
Honor her.
Mhm. I'm going to honor her.
She's your best effing friend for
Yeah.
life, literally.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Anything else today?
I can't thank you enough. This was incredible. I cannot wait to publish this one for people to see. And I'm gonna message you later and tell you like the modality that my therapist is using, and again, kind of get your thoughts on if that's a fit.
Okay, great.
Thanks. I don't remember what it's called. I know it has a name, but I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, no worries. And it doesn't mean that it's not a fit. There just might be other things that are missing that if you put them in,
Okay.
will make even more of a difference.
Perfect.
But,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you.
Take care. I love you so much, Sarah.
Bye.
Bye.